The Theater, written by Michael Pennington, voiced by Michael Pennington. It was about 11:30 when my girlfriend and I arrived at the movies. We had come for the midnight movie, and we liked to get there early to have time to get a good seat and grab some food. I paid and got the tickets. I gave Christina her ticket so she could go sit down and get us a seat high up in the auditorium. I went to the bathroom and then got refreshments. When I had finally made it to my seat, it was 11:55, 5 minutes until showing. It was kind of strange because there had been no previews, and there was nobody else in here with us, which was beyond rare even for a midnight movie. And then the screen went dark and all the aisle lights went out too. "I think their electricity just went off," I said. I stood. I was going to head to the front to see what was going on. "No, wait," Christina said. "Something isn't right. Can you hear that hum?" I looked down at her, then I heard what she was referring to. It was a low hum, like it was coming from below the floor of the auditorium or something. "Stay here," I instructed, reluctantly. I headed down the aisle and went for the door. It was locked. It wouldn't open. It was like locked from the inside. At this point, I was getting frustrated. I crossed over for the other door. Same thing, locked too. My girlfriend stood up, concerned in her shaky voice. "What's going on?" she asked. "I don't know," I said disgustingly. I calmly walked back to my seat. The staff had to be having some issues. The night was definitely not going as planned. Then the screen flicked on, revealing a light so bright it blinded us both. We shielded our face as a piercing sound came through the theater speakers, louder than anything we'd ever heard before. A rumbling sound followed that piercing, and the theater shook. It was like an earthquake. I heard Christina scream in terror. I guess we had both closed our eyes because when we opened them, there were people in the theater. In fact, it was packed. Everything was moving in slow motion, though. It was hazy and foggy. I looked over at her. She was watching the movie, but she looked considerably different somehow, maybe younger. The movie playing was Paranormal Activity 2 that came out in 2010. Why would they be replaying this? I began to freak out. After a few minutes of watching this, hoping I'd wake up from this weird dream, the loud sound came again as the screen went white. I covered my eyes and ears. People in the theater screamed until the sound stopped and the light ceased. Another movie began to play. The movie was Soul Survivors.
I feel like dancing.
For every new love, I'll settle for nothing less than friends for life.
Deal.
And one kiss.
We're in the room for the first time, Cass. We can do anything. No boundaries.
There is one that won't die.
I'd remember this movie as well. It was a psychological thriller that hadn't lasted long in the theaters and never lived up to its hype. It came out around 2001 and was directed by Stephen Carpenter, starring Wes Bentley and Eliza Dushku. The only problem was it was not 2001. It's 2019 and this movie shouldn't be in the theater tonight. I began to panic. I grabbed for the handle of the uncomfortable seating that you'd expect back in those days and went to stand, but Christina pulled me back down, assuring me everything was okay. I could see now that she was a young teenager, maybe 13 or 14. I freaked, noticing the end credits playing on the screen. The movie had been over just like that. Everything was really weird and happening really fast. Then that piercing sound came again, and the screen threw off this ray of blinding light. People screamed again as if they were dying or something, but they didn't try to stand. They just took it. I sat and clutched my chair too, gritting my teeth. It was as if you were holding on to your seat in a plane that was going down. After what seemed like 30 seconds of non-stop screaming and piercing sounds, the auditorium became quiet again. I opened my eyes, and a movie was playing that shouldn't have been. Freddie's Dead, The Final Nightmare. The movie was halfway over. I looked over to see that my girlfriend wasn't even there this time. Crazy thoughts went through my head. The years of the last two movies, we wouldn't have even been together as a couple. Yet she was with me in the theater at that movie in that presumable time anyways. And she was still going back in the aging process as if we were time traveling back. It was pretty confusing. But now she wasn't even here, and that would be correct because she wouldn't even be born when this movie came out. And I'd be pretty young myself. But here I was, watching one of the worst Freddie movies in the franchise with a heart thumping out of my chest. The dreaded sound came again. It sounded like a runaway freight train. The screen blinded me. And this time I screamed, unable to hold back my fear anymore. If this were a dream, I needed to wake up. I clenched my hands, grabbing the seats as the whole place shook violently. It stopped. I felt sick to my stomach. My adrenaline was high, my heart thumping. The movie was now Halloween 2. I think this would make the year somewhere around 1982. I'd be about 7 years old. I looked around. People had yet again stopped screaming and just began to watch the movie like nothing had ever happened. This was the most terrifying nightmare I'd ever been in. No pun intended. I felt like I may die from the anxiety. I tried to stand. I needed to get out to talk to the people at the front. Maybe ask them what year it was. But I couldn't move. I was frozen to my dadgum seat stiff. Guess what happened next? Yeah, here we go again. But this was different. I heard the loud, thundering noise, saw the theater go blinding white, flash black, and then white again with brilliant, blinding light. I had no choice but to hold on for dear life as people exhausted their lungs with screeching, blood-curdling screams. Then it stopped again, but I was no longer in my seat. I was in the seat beside where I'd been sitting. The ending credits on the movie read, The Haunted Library 2. Roller Coaster Time Travel. The copyright read 2062. I looked over to the seat to where I'd been and saw my decaying skeleton laughing, holding a box of popcorn with its bony fingers. I had died, but was still stuck in this time-traveling theater. Then I felt a nudge on my arm. I screamed out, jumping off my seat. I looked down and saw my girlfriend, and everything was back to normal. Some people in the rows in front looked over their shoulders, startled. "Babe, are you okay?" she asked. I sat back down and took a breath. Yeah, I guess I just dozed off. Had some time traveling to do. Don't ask. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was now on. I settled back into my comfortable reclining chair, glad to be alive in the present time and glad to be in a normal theater in a normal dimension. For everybody going to the movies tonight, enjoy yourselves. And don't time travel in a theater. You won't like it.